All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal.
The insurrection attempt at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021 was a prominent salvo in the fascist systemic takeover of all three branches of America's constitutional government, as well as the nation's so-called fourth estate, the corporate-owned media. But the anti-democratic and fascist impulse in American society is not new. It's woven into the country's DNA, so much so that voters for authoritarians often perceive themselves to be upholding democratic values as their rights are being denied by those they voted for. From the outside looking into the United States of America in the late 2020s, it might seem that Donald Trump's presidency is a cancer on the American system and polity. That's somewhat of a deception. Donald Trump did not usher in this glaringly fascist chapter in America's history. The roots of the Trump, Vance, Rubio regime's corporatist and neoconservative guised as populist takeover was 250 years in the making and made possible by inveterate but often ignored flaws embedded in an American political and social system enshrined into law by real estate barons, many of whom were also slaveholders. The Electoral College and gerrymandering, both of which grossly dilute the political power of individual Americans, deserves special attention when studying the maturation of fascism in American society. Mass media corporations helmed by non-Americans such as Rupert Murdoch and Elon Musk perversely profited off of confusing Americans with a steady diet of culture war claptrap to divide and conquer America's polity. One of the more anti-democratic forces in 21st century American society proved to be the U.S. Supreme Court, which, by the time of Trump's second inauguration in January of 2025, was a supermajority, in no small measure as a result of the 3 justices he appointed to the 9-member bench in his first term in the White House, which was mostly remembered for his administration's late response to the coronavirus outbreak, which led to some of the greatest and most prolonged disruptions in American life in the nation's history, which caused a historic spike in inflation. Project 2025 is the machinery by which the fascists aim to indefinitely hold on to power, regardless of the majority of Americans' wishes. In truth, Project 2025 aims to permit the ruling regime to enrich itself by any means necessary without ever being held accountable for the ravages their policies wreak on the body politic. The fascists taking over American politics and culture are, just like all the most notable fascist regimes of the 20th century, nihilist grifters who see government as a means of acquiring wealth for themselves at the expense of the people the government is meant to represent. The fascists in 2020s America are much like the fascists in 1920s Italy in the manner in which both weaponize religion, nationalism, race, and gender to justify their criminality as the natural order of things. The fascist takeover of America is, as much as anything else, a heist engaged in by a cadre of criminals cloaked in Christian nationalism. It's a naked transfer of wealth from the least advantaged, especially the young, to the most advantaged of Americans. We are living in an age of public self-service in which leaders rob their citizens of a meaningful future by perversely enriching themselves at the majority's expense. Donald Trump has not ushered in this fascist age of crony capitalism. He is merely the end result of a generation of neoconservative ethos having consumed both political parties in the United States. The Democrats abandoned the working class in the last quarter of the 20th century. Both American political parties were, by the year 2000, culprits in the corporatist takeover of American politics and society writ large. Both parties were, by the 2008 economic calamity, overrun by baby boomers raised in the context of a post-war consumer society in which unabashed individualism was gospel. Democrat and Republican leadership enriched themselves at the expense of the generations to follow, concomitant to public trust in government ebbing to historically low levels. The Republicans championed the ethos that government itself was what ailed American society. But both parties had, in the waning decades of the 20th century, become captive by corporate lobbyists. The Supreme Court's Citizens United ruling a decade into the 21st century paved the way for an obscene deluge of private and often dark money to flow into America's already broken political system from some of the darkest corners of the country and globe. Donald Trump's ascendance to the head of a fascistic criminal enterprise that is bent on never ever relinquishing political power was no aberration. It was, in fact, somewhat inevitable. Donald Trump did not bring fascism to America. Rather, the ascendance of Trump's fascistic regime is symptomatic of a far deeper rot in American society and its polity that needs to be identified, confronted, and addressed if America is ever to truly be what so many patriotic Americans want it to be: a just and verdant society for all, the shining city on a hill it has so often been mythologized to be.